Namaskar, I'm Harpreet Kaur and I welcome you all to our 5-day, 5-hour online training program. You're watching us live on PME Vidya channel number 6 to 12 and also our YouTube handle NCERT Official. Well, this is our online training program on power of audio in education. It is brought to you by Central Institute of Educational Technology, that is CIET NCERT New Delhi. And today we are in day 5, last day of the training session, where the topic that we have taken up is quite a tongue twister. It is Sonic Scrolls, the power of uttered word. What exactly it is all about and what are we going to learn in this session? Well, this is something that I'm sure will come to you in a short while from now. But it is also important to let you know that you can also participate in the session with your question, suggestion and feedback. Well, this is the culmination of this entire week's training program today, and if you have any question, any doubt, then please get in touch with us. Our phone number is 8800440559. We also have a specific email ID for you, that is training.helpdesk@ciet.nic.in. And since we are streaming live on our YouTube handle NCERT Official, so please go to the comment section and do not mark your attendance there but ask relevant questions. Now to know more about this topic, we are joined by our experts. See, I'm feeling the effect of this tongue twister here. So please join me in welcoming my guest for today, Dr. Amit Ranjan. Sir, namaskar and very warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much.
And let me tell everybody that sir is Assistant Professor from CIET NCERT New Delhi. Now sir, what this fancy topic is all about first of all, and I'm really curious to know what all you'll be covering in the session today.
Sure. So let's address the title first. It's called Sonic Scrolls. So sonic is related to sound waves, as you know, and scrolls are ancient parchments on which people used to write.
Okay.
And the most ancient scrolls that we have are the Dead Sea Scrolls from the Dead Sea.
Oh.
So it's just the scrolls, the history, the annals of sound waves, let's say. And the second part of the title, the power of utter, and in bracket we have ED, word.
Yeah.
So word is uttered, that we know, the power of the spoken word, and power of utter word, utter which means only. Yeah. So like you say utterly, butterly delicious, yes. Or you say just an utter individual can change a whole thing. So utter was also only, and so it's the only little word, but it can change the world. Words can change worlds.
Of course.
Or so it is about the enduring power of audio, and we are especially talking in terms of educational audio. These days we deal a lot with educational videos and also a lot of gaming. And so it seems that audio would have taken a back seat, but audio still has its own very enduring power. This session is about that, to explore what all is being done in the realm of audio and its history.
Of course, video cannot kill the audio, the star, and this session is going to be utterly delightful, I'm hoping so. So sir, I request you to kindly now go ahead with your presentation.
Sure, absolutely. So let's recap what we have done in the past 4 days before we go into more conceptual understanding. So first, in the first session we saw the enduring power of audio. What is the importance of audio? So despite the fact that there is video, what audio offers is emotional connection, because we have a long memory of audio. For 100 years radio has been around. We listen to songs, we have listened to songs in the radio, and FM has brought radio back into the lives of the entire world. When FM came, nobody knew that it would have that kind of reach, given that there's television and so on.
Impact, yes.
But it was able to connect, and everybody listens to FM en route to their work and so on. It's also about immersive experience, that listeners are transported to a different world, and especially there's some kind of deep nostalgia attached with radio as well, with the quality of the voice and the earliest memories of radio and so on. Also, when you're on the go, you can listen to the news on FM and so on. It's also about accessibility, that radio is very easily accessible in your cars, even on your computer you can access radio stations, and generally radio in very far-flung remote areas where internet is still not a powerful tool. It's still radio in very far-flung areas, in remote areas where. But the most important thing about audio is the idea of storytelling. That we all love to tell stories and listen to stories, and that's the most enduring power. And it's about listening, it's not about seeing stories. We all have told stories at our homes, to our friends, and we always weave in a story. Whenever you asked how was your day, you construct a story around it in which you are the protagonist. You may not have been in the real life situation, but we all protagonists of our situations, and we like to tell these stories. We also like to hear these stories in a certain format, a certain kind, and that is the real power of audio over video, that we like listening to stories more than, and this is an ancient thing of listening to stories through songs, and in your childhood listening to stories from your parents, from your grandparents, and so on. So, and I would even go on to say that what differentiates human beings from any other animals, generally it's said that man is a social animal and therefore is different from any other being. So one more differentiating aspect is the hands of a man, that we are able to work things as tools, but those chimpanzees and monkeys also have. But they are unable to collaborate, socialize in the way human beings follow a set of rules, follow a set of society like human beings are. But I would go on to say that it is stories which make human beings really different. We construct stories about our past, about our future, about where we are today. We are telling stories all the time, and that is our inherent difference from the rest of the animal kingdom. And so audio gives us that special ability, and many a time we like listening to for example, you know many songs of which you do not know the video. You've heard many songs on FM, or you just know certain songs from films from before, but you don't know the videos, and you sometimes are disappointed when you watch the video actually, that it doesn't fit your imagination, because a song by itself gives wings to your imagination. You probably imagine yourself as the hero or the heroine or whatever else, and you imagine it in very creative ways, whereas the video may be limiting. And of course, the enduring power, like we just discussed, is music. There's nothing like music which stays with us. Music is a part of our memories. It's not just the music itself, it's the associations you form. So you may listen to a certain song in the hills, wandering alone, and suddenly you would be reminded of your childhood when you were 9 years old and doing a particular thing, because music plants, sets your associations in memory. It is associated with very specific things which may not be connected with the music at all. Something you were cooking in the kitchen at that point of time, or on a hike climbing the mountains at that point of time, listening to a certain music. Many years later you would be reminded of that through that very association. So memory and music are very powerful associates, let us say. Right. Then we, in another session, we saw bridging the divide between broadcast and broadband. So broadcast basically is the beginning of the radio, when the sound waves are broadcast into the air, and then it proliferated into visual medium. And now over the past 20 years we've seen proliferation of the broadband, which has made things much faster, into not just your drawing room where the TV was, but on your personal computer, on your phones, and it's become very personalized. And so the big transition has been the individuation, the personalization of content. And so the content, the subject matter has changed a lot and also increased in volume quite a bit. Because let's say you had 100 radio stations, so you could broadcast only as much. But now you have thousands of podcasters, let's say, who are reaching out with their content, which may be very niche. It may be about how to make model ships, how to play a particular video game. It may be about medieval history. It may be about a certain form of poetry like the sonnet. So there are very niche categories in which podcast is broadcast, and there is audience for each of them. So earlier on radio, let us say if you were interested in books, you would get half an hour space in an entire week where there would be a book show in which some expert would come and talk about it. Now there are podcasts which talk endlessly, and you can play various episodes at any given point of time, so you don't have to wait for a certain time slot. It is there for you to so there's this internet radio and streaming, and which is much more accessible. So this is one of the things that we saw this week. Now, given all this atmosphere, it's important to know where we are coming from and where this nostalgia and memory is coming from. It's also an interesting story. Like we said, we are all suckers for story. So Mr. Marconi, which most people would know, is the inventor of the radio, but not exactly the radio. He invented what is called the wireless telegram in 1896. So now telegram or telegraph was absolutely revolutionary in the 1850s, that you were able to send. Before that, what happened is you had to send your messages through horses. So there would be horse runners until 1850. I have to send a message 300 kilometers away. There would be a horse runner who would halt after 100 kilometers. Another horse runner would take it, and so on. So in the 1850s, when telegram came, and the Morse code, which was a set of tras and trakus, tra, tra, taku, tra, and so it had to be decoded. Like today you have different kinds of systems like Braille, so it had to be decoded through a set of sounds which alphabet was being talked about. And so the whole country had to be wired. And this was one of the reasons for the failure of 1857 revolution in India, because the Indian rebels did not have, or the revolutionaries did not have access to telegraph, whereas the British had access to telegraph, so they could get their messages much faster. So anyway, so this was the challenge before Marconi to remove the wire, and he found out a method to remove the wire by sending out waves, but it was still in Morse code, it was not in voice. But this was absolutely revolutionary, that you did not need wires any longer to send out the Morse code, that you could tune into a frequency, and there were crystals that could and which also tells us a little about the history of the crystal, looking crystal and so on. So you needed crystals to tune into those frequency, and later then there was a carborundrum which could tap in. So anyway, this was an instant boom in America. In about 1900, people started buying shares in stocks of radio companies, and they shot up. For the next 10 years, the radio shares were up the roof. And then comes the story of the Titanic. So what's Titanic got to do with the radio? But here it is. Titanic, the unsinkable ship, sank in 1912, as we all know. It hit an iceberg and sank, and 1635 people died. So by this time, this wireless telegramming had become very popular, and so people started sending out messages about the sinking of the ship, and there were lots of rumors, because there were lots of pranksters who started saying that the ship has not sunk, it's on its way to Canada, and different kinds of misleading messages, rumors, and so on. So the sinking of the Titanic actually brought out regulation in the radio world, and then they started regulating a license fee, and you had to be capable, you had to know the Morse code, and you had to give your agenda to the government of what you were going to broadcast, and so on. So this is how radio became a thing which was regulated by the government. Like now, initially internet had no boundaries, then governments have framed boundaries for the internet and regulations, and similarly now we are seeing with cryptocurrency and so on. So the real revolution in radio comes in 1920, when this guy called Frank Conrad started a channel called KDKA, and he started beyond the Morse code. He started experimenting with voice. So what he did, he just took his gramophone to his garage, put a mic, and started broadcasting music. So it's exactly 100 years ago that music was first heard on the radio. What seems like a universal truth that's been happening forever. Or we think that kings in the ancient times also listened to the radio. No, it's only 100 years old exactly, and it started in a garage in America. Um, and so Frank Conrad's experiment was a hit, and then people realized that, oh, we can share music with this. We can share a lot of things with this, and Frank Conrad did this so that radios sell more, and so radio companies which made radios made a lot of money with this idea. So it is then, now we come to our area, is that when educators in universities started thinking that this is a great revolution. If music can be broadcast, maybe we can broadcast our lectures, interesting things, our findings, our researches, and so on. So a person called Earl Terry from the Wisconsin University, he thought, you would have to understand that America is also a very big country. It stretches 5,000 kilometers coast to coast. And so he thought that if we could send out weather reports from our researchers in the agriculture department, it would highly benefit the farmers. And that's what he started doing in Morse code again. Did not start using voice right away, but gradually they understood that voice broadcasts can be done, and so very good professors, writers, they'd be called as guests on talk shows, and that would be broadcast over the radio. And this is how educational broadcast started. And this was a big revolution because there were lots of working people who wanted to study, who wanted to learn more, and education was a window, radio was a window to the world suddenly. It is very interesting. We often hear of MOOCs these days, massive online open courses, and we think this is new, this has just started. But this started in the 1920s with the radio. So the University of Nebraska, they started broadcasting programs, and lots of people started listening, giving them their feedback, and so they said, why don't we convert this to a course? So people, whoever wants to listen to our lectures, can listen over the radio, and they can pay $12.50 and take an exam, and they'll be given 2 credits, whichever university they are going to. And this is the first MOOCs course over public radio in the University of Nebraska. So that is also 100 years old. Now, so this was a very good scene for educational radio in the 1920s, and many universities, a consortium of universities, about 30 universities in America joined in. So we are still far away to independence, and then we'd pick up these ideas. Of course, we picked up these ideas for our Doordarshan, Akashvani. We did a lot of educational programs. So the global history impacts national history quite a bit, and that the initial impetus in radio was on education also impacted us post-independence. So we also did a lot of agricultural programs, educational programs, and so on. But the beating that educational radio took worldwide was because of commercialization. So there was so much jostling in the airspace that the educational programs got relegated to lesser visible airspaces. They got short waves instead of medium waves. So the best wave, or the best is of course FM, which is the most clear
frequency
and
modulation.
Frequency wise, which is the most clear voice quality, and but it reaches a limited area. And then the medium wave, which is good and reaches far, and short wave, which can reach far but the voice quality becomes bad. So the universities got really bad frequencies in which they could not. So there would be a lot of static noise, and the quality went down. And the commercial broadcasters got the best frequencies because they had advertisers, which the education institutes and educationists could not get advertisers, and of course it's also sort of against the policy of educators to have commercial advertisements come in between. So this is what led to a gradual decline of educational broadcast, which would otherwise could have been the biggest driving force of education of the world till date. So eventually the commercial companies took over. But then comes the internet and the podcast revolution in the last 10 years, last 20 years, but especially the last 10 years, where, like I said, there is a very niche variety of content which is personalized and flexible. And in fact, anybody can start their own podcast. You don't need anything. No, you don't even need, let's say, a good camera or a professional mic. Your phones these days have very good quality sound recording as well as video recording. It may not be a professional quality, but good enough. The voice quality is good enough that you can broadcast, because the key is not the form or how expensive your equipment is, but the key is how good a storyteller you are. And which is why I just told a story off the radio to demonstrate that. And it's been seen that generally in school people consider history a very boring subject, but it's been seen with podcasts that history podcasts are one of the best and draw the maximum traffic if a story that's well told. And there's some lecture I was seeing in which this American historian tells about some obscure book that became a rage with people because it was a story so well told, and about an unknown sort of a figure, historical figure, and people got very interested in him and started going to his grave to offer flowers and so on, because it was a story that was so powerfully told. So that is the strength of podcasts, the podcast revolution, that you can practically learn about anything that you want as long as you're keen. So it's a sort of an information and invitation to students and learners to drop your mindless scrolling of your social media and try and scroll some podcasts and find out podcasts on the internet that are of interest to you. And there is no kind of topic that podcasts don't cover. You just need to find it in the ocean of podcasts, because there are thousands of them. And what also happened with the podcast is that they disrupted the traditional media outlets. So if I am interested in a particular, I am interested in literature, I will be able to access loads of podcasts, good podcasts, which cover that kind of stuff, and I don't necessarily have to have to lean on traditional media for content, and which may be very limiting, misleading, unresearched. So now you can get authentic, good content over podcasts. Like I said, you can start your own, and I would urge everybody to start your own little podcasts, and do not think of reaching big numbers or making big money or anything of that sort, but rather as your own personal journey of things that you are interested in. You may be learning different things at school. You may have a particular kind of interest which you think by the side, or if you are a grown-up learner, you may have a different kind of a job, but you keep thinking about poetry or history or whatever. So this is a way, or you like to travel. This is a way to archive your own life and to share with others, and this is what resonates with people. Right. So now in the very interconnected ecosystem that we have, ecosystem is any sort of system which resembles the ecology, which resembles environment, and this metaphor is taken because in environment everything is interrelated. A tree is interrelated with a bee which pollinates the flowers, and which is interrelated with a goat, interrelated with in the whole food chain with a predator animal, and so on. And similarly, the virtual world also has an ecosystem. So now, given that there is radio, there are your smart devices, there are your computers, podcasts, and so on. There's multiple interfaces that are there, and they're all interconnected in one way or the other also. So for example, your FM radio gives you news, day-to-day news, weather updates, latest songs. It tells you about podcasts, the podcasts tell about which FM channels to listen to, and so on. And your smart device, everything is ultimately these days on your smart device, where you can listen both to podcasts and to radio channels. And in fact, there are world radio channels in which you can tune into any frequency, point out at a place, and it's able to tap into the radio system of that place. So what you can listen to world radio and you'll not be limited by let's say short waves. One is the personalized content on podcasts across sort of disciplines, and also even if you want to access traditional radio, that is also possible on the internet now, which taps into all these radio stations and gives you high frequency output on your own mobile devices. There are multiple apps, radio apps, which do this now. Right, so now let us see what is happening currently in the world scenario in terms of audio. So there is interactive audio now, there is live audio. Earlier there used to be only programs in which people heard the program and then you send letters or later send emails about it, the feedback. But now you have live audio where the audience can also talk in, and you can have across the space. And of course we are seeing with all kinds of platforms now post COVID that have developed, like Zoom and other platforms, that's the video counterpart of it. And similar, there are audio counterparts in which you can have a huge conference of many people, in which there can be a proper conference in which somebody speaks and there's feedback from the audience, and so on. And similarly, there's there are social audio apps like Twitter Spaces, Clubhouse, etc. So there's counterpart to everything that is video or text in audio, because all you need is to be able to upload a file in any manner, whether it's audio or video. Now in terms of personalized audio, AI is also a new sort of disruption in the big universe, which I am not a great fan of, but AI is also able to comprehend very fast things over the internet. And you ask it a question and it will be able to give you recommendations. Say if you're interested once again in beekeeping, and you ask where are the podcasts, and may pull out a podcast from Cyprus where the sweetest honey is from, or Hawaii or some island like that, which you may not otherwise know, which I mean you can do generally through an internet research, but AI now looks for those things. It does your work as an agent and brings you all that information. However, the AI always comes with a rider. One should not rely too much on AI, because it reduces our own eye, our own intelligence. But apart from that, what AI does is it generates an algorithm according to your taste, according to your current taste, and we must understand that our taste keeps changing. So AI figures out your taste and gives you recommendations according to that, and it does not then let you explore something which is new. So if I am interested in a particular kind of history today and I ask AI for it, it figures out, it judges me, it judges my personality and starts giving feed according to that. And so you have to rely both on internet search and AI. Just do not rely on AI, because it will frame you, it will limit you. AI, while it's a tool, it can also start limiting people, and there are lots of examples of that. And so this is with a rider. Do not solely depend on AI for your suggestions. And with AI like situations over the net, now there is adaptive content. Like I just said, algorithms are generated by the machine. So algorithm should be only taken as a suggestion, and one should not fall into the echo chamber of, because you also want to know voices from other side. If you are interested in a certain topic, you want the debate, you want to know what other people are also thinking and not just what you are thinking. And so one has to be careful of the AI generated adaptive content and explore, and so go to the traditional internet and look up 30 different kinds of suggestions, websites, and work according to that. Now we are also entering an era of immersive audio, where there are all kinds of things. There's surround systems, and we've already seen Dolby Digital, and now there's something called the 3D audio. There's binaural sound and audio only experiences, in which the sound is completely immersive and sort of enhances only that sense. So while we are trying to figure out things with all our 5 senses, there are these systems which enhance the sound experience so much. It's so rich that it cuts out other sensory faculty for that moment, so that you can experience that kind of sound. So there's lots of experiment. Of course, there's very fine digital quality sound. Editing can be done to the 10th of a second, or even smaller. Voice can be enhanced. There are lots of non-singers who are singers these days on internet with AI enhancement, and so on. So also there is monetizing innovations, which is why people are a lot in podcasts. There are some top podcasters who make money in millions because companies like Spotify, etc., want good speakers and good content for them. So if you think that you have, it's not just about voice. Voice is only like 10% of it. If you have some very interesting things to say about any topic, and it does not matter what topic, there are takers for all kinds of, from making aeroplane models to fertilizers to curious animals. They are takers for all kinds of topics across the world. So it is about your drive, your passion, whatever you're passionate about. If you're serious about it, have a podcast, and you'll have support groups. You'll also probably get subscriptions and eventually monetize. But like I said, the aim should not be that. The aim should be passion driven, that you're learning something and helping others learn something. Be a part of a community and archive your own journey. That's the primary purpose of this. So given all this history and the current situation, what do we have in terms of challenges and opportunities is something that we need to think about. So the challenges, as we saw right through history, like we saw 1896 is when Marconi invents radio, and by 1912 there's saturation of the airwaves. It has to be regulated. There are pranksters. There's all kinds of things that are happening. So that's of course a challenge, that there are thousands of people making podcasts. So to find something of your interest, and also to find the deep dive where somebody has really researched and is the best podcast for that particular area, is difficult because of the content saturation, as is the case with all of internet. Whatever you need to find about, you will have 100 videos or files thrown at you, out of which you have to figure out the best in the haystack, in which AI is now helping figure that out. But like I said, AI comes with that danger that it will try to judge what you will like and give things accordingly. So one of the challenges is content saturation. So it needs perseverance, it needs patience, that you scroll through it, sample a few, and come up with. There are also meta podcasts which will tell you about the best podcasts. So probably one can listen to that also. And so this leads to the challenge of discoverability, that it's difficult to discover or be discovered. Let's say I make a very good podcast about podcasts, but it's difficult for somebody to find it in this pin in a haystack. And the challenge also is monetization for creators. So let's say you are a travel buff, you travel a lot and you like to research and write about it and talk about it. But for all the pain that you take, there may be no money, because only the top 10% of podcasts are properly monetized. And this is the same for videos as well. Lots of people making reels, YouTube videos, but there's only a very small percent of them who are able to break past. So this can be demotivating, and which is why again I say that one should do it for one's own pleasure. So it's better to be an amateur than a professional in this. If you are a professional, then you have to really immerse yourself in all the rules and regulations of the game. There's also the issue of data privacy while making podcasts. People tend to use, or making videos, people tend to use images and clips of copyrighted material, and that is really tricky. So one has to really work hard to find out which material is copyright free. For example, if you're talking about books, it's a general rule that about when an author has been dead for 60 years, that's the time when a book becomes copyright free. Otherwise, you have to acknowledge, seek permission, and so on. The biggest challenge of the day, of course, is misinformation, and especially these days when people do not have the time. So if you're producing a podcast every day, a video every day, you do not have the time to dive deep, or you do not have the tendency to dive deep, because we have stopped learning the traditional way by reading books or diving deep, cross-checking, triangulating facts, and so on. And so we get information from a source that we think is authentic, and it's too tempting to put it out. We put it out and we just spread misinformation, and this becomes a chain. There's 100 people telling lie, becomes truth at some point, and the truth starts looking suspect at that point of time. So we are really living in an age of this information highway, where misinformation can create all these problems. But despite all this, it is a force of history. There's nothing that undoes a force of history. So the force of history is here to stay, and so we have to find opportunities in that. Of course, there are great opportunities, which is that it has got a global reach. Probably right now you're watching this program thousands of kilometers away in real time and are able to send us feedbacks. So of course, there's the strength of that, of immediate global reach. One does not have to depend on either horses or telegram wires,
Or the Morse codes.
or the Morse codes, or even traditional radio with bandwidth and broadband. Everything is instant. And the other thing is the diversity of voices, which is a very important point. So with any traditional system, what happens is that the opportunities are limited. There's only a certain kind of people, even if they are very meritorious. There are only a certain kind of people who get representation. So with individualization, with atomization, with personalization of content, all kinds of voices can be heard. Right. So, and this is how people of LGBTQ community or various marginalized groups are able to tell their stories, represent their points of view, and talk about their events and so on, which would in traditional media get very small space in the newspaper on the 5th page. You can have a whole podcast about your story. Right. And this is also leading to new business models. Of course, all the time with internet, we've seen lots of entrepreneurs come up. So even with audio systems, there are different kinds of entrepreneurs who come up, are able to conduct their businesses, and also similar models. What we are concerned with is the educational potential of the radio, which was lost, like I said, in the 1930s and 40s. It took off, radio like we saw took off with educational videos, with the universities, and which the world needs to rethink, the governments need to rethink the educational potential of radio. And because the world has also shifted to videos, to other media, to new media, audio is available again to the governments to tap in, to educationists, to universities to tap in and make it big. And it can become really big because people like I said, the fundamental of this entire session is that people like to listen to stories and tell stories. People can tell stories through the medium of interactive radio, and they can listen to very interesting stories of people's journeys and so on. So this is a very golden opportunity, with the world having moved on to new media, to re-tap into the power of radio, both internet radio and traditional radio, to be able to reach out to people through educational videos. So that is the call to action. We have a couple of more minutes, so I'll just talk a little more conceptually about how we can shape the future of audio. So of course we can try new formats. There's a lot that can be done through the internet radio, different kinds of audio clips. We can do language learning exercises. We can learn each other's accents. So a lot can be done. You can learn both language, literature, and any realm of knowledge. And of course the focus of educational audio should be on quality and authenticity, which is very important in this growing noise, and that will get more traction, more attention. The more authentic the content, the more people will like it, because there is a lot of noise and people know what is noise. And so educational videos need to also prioritize audience engagement and building a community. And community can be built by sustainably talking about certain topics which are of use to students and various communities, like we said, farmers or different communities which need support, let's say alcoholics or whoever needs support. And always, and of course the onus on educational audio will always be the ethical implication. And finally, the key takeaway of this is that audio's power lies in its ability to connect, inform and inspire, of which the last two are the key: inform and inspire. People like stories and they like to be inspired by other people's stories. Once again, why we talk, all this that we said about audio can be said about video, one could argue. तो ऐसी क्या खास बात है? खास बात ये है कि that visual filters are bypassed. Television is a medium of passive reception. So your thoughts are manipulated by the way images play out. We think of a hero as a hero and a villain as a villain because we are manipulated into thinking, because the hero has an ailing mother and a poor sister.
A certain physique.
But basically, so stereotypes are played upon, that this is a mother, a sister, whereas the villain will not have a mother and sister, he'll eat meat and so on. So the visual cues play upon your mind and pull you through your stereotypes. But while reading a book or listening to a story, it's your own imagination that works. The image is not created by somebody else and fed to it. So it becomes personal and immersive, and your own emotions are involved, and that evokes whatever it has to evoke. So the last bit, low cognitive load, is the high cognitive load these days, which is the basic problem, that we are all multitasking all the time, scrolling reels while talking on the phone, while watching TV, while you're doing so many things together. That's high cognitive load. A lot of information is going out of which a brain is not capable of processing so much, or it gets mixed up. Whereas with audio, there's focus. There's only one sense that is commanding your attention, which is listening, and your mind creates images according to that. So you have your creative faculties clear. There's space for yourself to grow, which otherwise, when you're bombarded with images, there's no space for you to grow. It clusters you. All right. So these we have discussed already, but just a recap: the ubiquity of the matter, which ubiquity means which is something which is present everywhere. That sound does not have barriers. It's sound waves. It can reach, and it can reach across divides. It's our voices. when we talk to each other, let our opinions get known to each other, is only when we can understand each other better. Till we don't talk, till we don't have a dialogue, and which is why it's very important that these educational audios that we build a conversation across cultures. We tell our stories, other people listen to it and respond, and be inclusive, be inclusive by nature, that we respect people of all abilities, color, we do not discriminate, and we want to listen stories of everyone. And of course, there's the matter of cultural preservation attached with it. So we've seen all these. These are some of the final points, which is just a recap. That audio helps us deep dive, whereas new media and social media is a quick glance, it's scrolling, our mind does not engage with it, and audio is able to build resilience in us and adaptability. The more you, it's like about, they say about books, the more you read, the more you will be able to write, the more you listen.
Yes.
If you are a good listener, and it's also important to be a good listener, you will be able to speak better, you will be able to understand other people better. Right. So that was that, and if there's anything else you'd like to ask.
Sure, sir. First of all, it was a very wonderful presentation. It was like I'm meeting the audio for the first time with all its new dimensions in place. Since we're talking about power of audio in education, I want to understand that how educators can harness the power of a third word in making this learning experience really engaging and joyful for the students.
Yeah, thanks. So first, like in the title, there's both utter and utter. Utter is also just the one word, and it's always one which makes the difference in a society. So like all religious texts say, the Bible says first there was the word. It begins, that's the first line. There's word before the world, and similarly in Hindu philosophy we have the idea of dhvani, and the sound of om, and so on.
Yes.
So we rely a lot on what we listen to, and we make our learning, our judgments through what we listen to, and so listening as a faculty is very important. So it's given that much importance in learning. The four skills of learning any language are listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
Yes.
So listening is the key skill, which will lead to speaking, and which will also lead to reading and writing. So this is, we are talking about fundamentals, but like we've just seen just now, that given that the world has moved from radio to new media, to whatever else is on the internet, that space is empty again, and that space being empty is great opportunity for educators to put up good quality, authentic quality material out on radio, traditional radio as well as internet radio. And it's also an opportunity of what University of Nebraska was doing 100 years later, do MOOCs over radio. Massive online courses where we have all these open universities right now, but if let's say our open universities are supplemented by radio programs, whereas you just have a text to read right now in your open universities, and some outreach programs once in a month. If you have regular programs once a week, twice a week, every day, or you have modules over the internet which you can access anytime, that learning will not substitute classroom learning, but it will give a lot of other material. What is now just reading material will also become listening material, and it's an archive, and it also leads to a lot of dialogue. Like we talk a lot about what we see on the internet in terms of news, YouTube videos, there's chatter about it, there's discussion about it, and if audio becomes a trend, there will be chatter and discussion about that. People will learn better, read more authentic material, and not waste their time over mindless social media scrolling.
And I'm sure these sonic practices will also promote inclusivity in a diverse country like India.
Absolutely, that is the most important and call of the hour, to be inclusive and hear diverse voices.
Absolutely. So, sir, thank you so much for your contribution to the session.
Thank you.
It was indeed I would say, utterly delightful journey here, because we talked about sonic scrolls, the power of uttered word, and I'm wrapping up this conversation of day 5 here under the umbrella theme of our training program, Power of Audio in Education. But before I finally close, it's time to share some more important updates with you. But of course, before updates also, it's a training program, so I must remind you that you can participate in the assessment. Do visit our website cit.ncert.gov.in and you can find all the details over there. If you score more than 70%, you'll be granted a certificate. So please make sure that you read the guidelines before you attempt the assessment, and do not forget to share your feedback with us. And now coming back to the update that I was about to share with you, it's about this ongoing competition called Balpan Ki Kavita. Let's see what it is.
क्या आपको भी गीत, कविता पढ़ने, लिखने और गाने गुनगुनाने में रुचि है? तो आइए शिक्षा मंत्रालय भारत सरकार की एक अनूठी और सराहनीय पहल का हिस्सा बने तथा भारतीय भाषाओं और अंग्रेजी में लोकगीत और कविताएं भेजें। आप दिए गए लिंक पर अपनी रचनाएं अथवा किसी अन्य रचनाकार के गीत और कविताएं भेज सकते हैं। भारतीय भाषा कविता प्रतियोगिता के नियम आदि भी आपको इसी लिंक पर उपलब्ध होंगे।
We wish you luck with the competition, and also I would like to share with you that textbooks for grade 4 and 7 are now available on Amazon, Flipkart and NCERT website. So please purchase your copies now. And now let's take a quick look at the schedule, what's all coming ahead. In a short while from now, you can watch our session Sahyog, followed by a session on school leadership development by NCSL NEPA at 5:30 p.m. And rest all the programs you have been watching since morning, you can watch them again on our YouTube handle NCERT Official. With this, it's a wrap. This is me, Harpreet Kaur, taking leave of you, but you stay tuned on our various platforms for more educational content. Take care. Namaskar.